Welcome back, high-level listeners, to week 5, day 2 of our English for Travel speaking course. Today's video will focus on vocabulary, key expressions, and a bit of grammar related to coming home from a vacation. Don't let the grammar part scare you. We will be going through each rule step by step. Hi, everybody. I'm Kat, the American voice here on High Level Listening.
And I'm Mark, the British voice. Today's class in our English for Travel course will be a great way for you to expand your English vocabulary and grammar skills, especially when talking about past experiences or things that you wish had been different.
We'll be releasing a new video each day from Monday to Friday on YouTube for free to complete our English for Travel course. But if you don't want to wait and you would love to support us as teachers, you can get all 25 of our travel English videos today by purchasing the full English for Travel course on our High Level Listening store. On top of that, you get downloads, MP3s, worksheet pages, phrase lists, pronunciation guides, and homework activities. You can click the link below in the description and get all of that right now.
Okay, so let's get started. In our first class, you heard the entire spoken conversation about coming home from vacation or coming home from holiday. Now, we'll explain each of the most useful vocabulary phrases and expressions in more detail. We'll tell you what they mean and give you some more examples. Most of these phrases, like usual, can be used in both American and British English, but if there are any differences, we'll make it clear in our explanations. And again, in the full English for Travel course, you can get a list of these phrases with pictures and images and extra definitions as part of the bonus materials. The link for that is down below.
All right, let's get started. So our first sentence, our first question that we're going to ask Mark, how was your trip? How was your trip? So if I'm asking someone, how was your trip? I'm asking about their travels. I'm asking about the trip that they just finished. Okay? How was your trip?
Could I say, how was your travels? Would that make sense?
No, you could say how were your travels, but it doesn't sound very natural or very common. Probably the most common, how was your day? How was your trip? How was your weekend? It's very easy to use that with lots of different topics.
So actually, Kat's first line had 2 questions in it. How was your trip? Did you have a good time? So it's 2 questions back to back. And this is very normal in English conversation. This is very normal to ask 2 questions. So the first one, how was your trip? Did you have a good time? Often the second question is a closed question, like, how was your trip? Was it fun? How was your trip? Did you enjoy it? So it's a closed question, so it's yes or no. The thing to do in response is to answer the second question. So, how was your trip? Did you have a good time? Yes, I did. So, answer the second question first. So, if in the dialogue, Kat asked, how was your trip? Did you have a good time? This double question is more casual, it's more friendly. We look more enthusiastic, like we really want to know. We have so many questions. We're just asking everything all at once. So this is not intimidating. It's just being friendly and excited.
That's a really good way to put it, because especially if someone's just back from a trip, oh my goodness, how are you? What did you do? Where did you go? Tell me more. Tell me more. So now at the beginning of the script, we explained that I'm picking Mark up from the airport. Okay, so to pick someone up, you want me to pick you up from the airport, is to collect someone or to go to the place and get them. Okay, so to pick someone up, you can pick your kids up from school. You can pick up a friend from the airport. Usually the taxis are quite expensive. It's kind of out of the way, so it's easier to go pick them up. So that means I will drive my car to the airport, collect Mark, get him in the car, and then I will take him home. Okay, so I will pick him up. I'm picking Mark up. He says, hi, thanks for picking me up.
Yes, so then after Kat picks me up, she asks me about my holiday. In the UK, we more often say holiday. Trip is perfect because you use it in the United States and in the UK. How was your trip is perfect for both of us. She said, how was your trip? Did you have a good time? I said, yes, I had a fantastic time eating and drinking my way through Italy. Eating and drinking my way through Italy. So there's two parts to this phrase. Eating and drinking. When we talk about the activities, we use the ing or the gerund. So hiking and swimming, touring and sightseeing, partying and relaxing. I was eating and drinking my way through the country. Through Italy means I visited a few different cities or a few different places. So I went from north to south or down the coast. I went through a country, stopping at different places along the way. So Kat knows from that I didn't stay in one city. I went to a couple of other ones or a few different places. And I was eating and drinking in every place. It was like the main objective of the trip. So I had a fantastic time eating and drinking my way through.
Now, I tell Mark because, if I had the chance, that's what I would have done. That's what I would have done. Okay, so we've got a little grammar here. I'm not really the grammar expert, but if I were in Mark's position, if I just went to Italy, if I had planned a trip to Italy, I would have done the same thing. The eating and the drinking through Italy. Yes, absolutely. I would have done the same thing. That's what I would have done.
The next phrase is a bit of an adventure. A bit of an adventure. In the dialogue, I said, for the most part, it was a bit of an adventure at times, though. So the word adventure is usually something exciting. You go on a long journey. It's sometimes exciting, dangerous, or difficult, and it's usually something in movies or books. If someone in English says it was a bit of an adventure, it actually has a slightly negative feeling. It sounds like there were lots of challenges and obstacles and some difficult things. I'm trying to be positive about these things, and if you want to be positive about travel problems, call them an adventure. It was a bit of an adventure. And I'm trying to be positive about it, but I am saying that there were challenges or obstacles. You'll hear maybe later in the dialogue that I almost missed my flight, I almost lost my luggage. Those kind of problems make it an adventure. So when I say that, you might think, oh, it wasn't perfect. There were some problems along the way. It was a bit of an adventure.
It's funny you're doing the eye. It was a bit of an adventure. It's funny we do the same eye movement. It's like, well, it was a bit of an adventure. You know what I mean?
You know how it is.
Because I was a little shocked. I was a little shocked to hear that. Wait, what? What happened? So even when you said that, I was worried. Wait, something bad happened? Oh my gosh, are you okay? Wait, what happened? So a bit of an adventure, like you said, is actually kind of negative. So Mark is regretting that he didn't buy tickets early, right? So he says, I really should have booked some tickets in advance. Now, remember with the word should, you kind of have a choice here, okay? You should do this. You should do that. You have a choice, okay? One is a better choice. So you should do that one, okay? And when we regret, should have done this. If we regret, I made the wrong choice in the past. So I should have booked some tickets in advance. This means that Mark didn't book those tickets. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he didn't think it was going to be that busy. So his choice was, I didn't book those tickets. But now I'm regretting that. I made the wrong choice. I really should have booked some tickets in advance.
The reason I should have booked tickets in advance is because Rome is packed with people. In the dialogue, Rome is just so packed with people in the summer. Packed is another word for very, very crowded. Lots of people all crowded into a museum, crowded around a popular tourist spot. In the summer is usually the busiest period as well. So if it's not fun and it's not comfortable and it's not nice, it's packed with people. It sounds quite uncomfortable and unpleasant. So I should have bought tickets because maybe I could have avoided those problems, or I could have got to my destination a bit faster. So that's my mistake. I should have done that because Rome was packed with people. So the next part has a British English and American English difference. I'm from the UK, so in the dialogue, I said, I spent a lot of time queuing up for different museums and tours. So I spent a lot of time queuing up. Queuing up is the British word for waiting in a line. There's an entrance and maybe people stand behind each other and wait for their turn. The queue is the name of the line. It's also an action. I queue, I am queuing, I've been queuing for 30 minutes. So it's the name of the line and it's the thing you do. Because we like to give you casual conversational English, we also use a phrasal verb, queue up. Queue up. It just adds a bit of friendliness and it's a bit more casual way to say it. So you can queue up for the bathroom, queue up for the entrance, queue up for tickets. This is more common in British English.
The alternative for American English is standing in line, waiting in line. We do use lining up, but it really sounds like something you do in school. So when the teacher says line up, then we're all getting in a line behind the teacher, right? So we do have line up, just like you said, queue up, but we use that more in school. So I would probably say, if I were to say Mark's exact sentence, I would say I spent a lot of time standing in line for different museums and tours. I spent a lot of time waiting in line, standing in lines. So one line, two lines, because I want to go to two museums. These are two different lines. So yeah, the grammar is a little bit different. We can't just say queue up and line up. It's just not as natural in American English. Standing in line. Don't cut the line. I like this one in British English. Jump the queue. Is that right? Jump the queue.
Yeah, jump the queue or cut into the queue. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Don't do that.
British
Don't do that.
Very upset.
Never do that.
Yes, we love queues. We like queuing, actually.
Stand in line. Stand in line. So the next phrase that we have is another good example of grammar that we're going to be using in the past. Were you still able to do everything you wanted to do? Were you still able to do everything you wanted to do? Wanted to do, okay? Wanted to do. So I'm asking Mark. So he stood in line and he wasted a lot of time, right? He should have bought some tickets, but he was standing in line. So, did you have the opportunity to do everything you wanted to do? Were you still able? Okay. So did you get to see everything in the end? Were you still able to do everything you wanted to do?
I think fortunately I was. And there's another good phrase that's different between the UK and the US. In my dialogue, I said, I did all the touristy bits, obviously, like the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Vatican. The main phrase, the touristy bits. This is more common in the UK. The word bits is more common in the UK as well. The touristy bits are the most popular places for tourists. When you think of Italy, you imagine some popular places. The Colosseum, the Pantheon, the Vatican, those are the touristy bits. If I went to Paris, the touristy bits would be the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, the Mona Lisa. So you can do the touristy bits. So in my dialogue, I did all the touristy bits. That means I visited the most popular attractions and did the activities, took the photo and everything. What would you say in the US?
Naturally, I would say something like I hit up all the touristy spots. All the main tourist spots, main touristy spots. If you went to New York, I did all the main, I went and did all the main tourist spots. Like, it's funny we say did them, like you have to go there, buy the tickets, go to the museum, but we did everything, right? We hit up all the touristy spots and we were able to see everything. Now, Mark did talk a lot about standing in line, but he said all that work, all that time, it was absolutely worth it. It was absolutely worth it. Now, when something is worth it, you have to work. You have to work for it, okay? And in the end, maybe it wasn't worth it, okay? I put in all this time, all this energy, all this money, and I was disappointed. It wasn't very nice, but it was absolutely worth it. So even if you have to spend the time, the money, the energy, it was absolutely worth it.
The next phrase is a really good answer. If you're talking to someone about their trip or about their holiday, and they talk about all the good things that they did, the nice things they got to see and eat, a good response or a good thing to say is, glad you got to. Glad you got to. In the dialogue, it was, oh, well, glad you got to see all that. I'm so jealous. So I went to the Vatican, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, sorry. Then Kat said, wow, that sounds great. Glad you got to see all that. Using the word got means you were able to. You got to, you were able to. You were allowed to. You had the ability to. It was open. There was no construction. There were tickets available. These opportunities were there. You got to do it. You got to see the Trevi Fountain. You got to see the Colosseum. So we use got in this way a lot. So it's a nice thing to say. Glad you got to do all that. Glad you got to see those museums. Glad you got to try some real Italian food. So it's a nice thing to say back to someone if they've had a really good holiday. Glad you got to do all that.
It kind of sounds like you were lucky. You were lucky too. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
glad you got to do all that. Glad you found the time. You stood in line. You did it. Right. Lucky you. Lucky you. So glad you did that. Glad you got to see all that. Now, I was saying Rome is definitely on my bucket list. Now, this is one phrase from textbooks that I think we use. Yeah, for sure. The bucket list. The bucket list. So it's on my bucket list. And a bucket list is just something you want to do, some big, exciting things you want to do. And it's before you die. So you have kind of your whole life to do these things. But if you had to choose a short list of things to do in your whole life, that's your bucket list,
Yeah, it's on my bucket list. It sounds like there's a weird bit of pressure to do it, like before you die, hurry up, the clock is ticking. Come on, visit Rome,
how old
climb
are
Mount
you?
Everest, swim with dolphins. Yeah, I know. So we start saying it from a young age. But yes. So then we carried on talking, and maybe before my trip, I told Kat what I'm going to do. I told her my itinerary, my travel plan, and maybe it was a few weeks ago, and it's not her holiday, so it's okay if she doesn't remember everything. But she tries and says, after Rome, you told me you were going to... And then she can't remember. But this is also a way to keep a conversation going. If you want people to talk about the next part of their holiday. So they talked about Rome a lot, and you're like, okay, what did you do next? You told me you were going to. So it's two verbs in the past. Told me you were going to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a prompt to get me to share the next part or the next location or the next destination, the next activity. So if you want to kind of push the story forward a bit, you say, after Rome, you told me you were going to, or you told me you were planning to, you told me you wanted to, and then don't finish the sentence. Let them take over, and they'll love it. They'll think it's a fantastic conversation because they get to keep talking about themselves.
Okay, so this phrase, it's funny. I was just out to dinner with a friend last night and they said this phrase in real life, so it was nice. It was like night and day. Night and day. It was like night and day. Well, night and day, these are opposites. Okay, so this is a very common phrase that something is completely different than it was before. Remember, Rome was packed with people. Mark was standing in line all day, right? So then he goes to this new place and it was like night and day, completely different.
Yes, it was super quiet. There were no people around. So I had the beach all to myself. That means there was no one else on the beach. I was alone on the beach. And this is a positive thing. I was alone on the beach. Sounds like I was kind of lost and scared. But I had the beach all to myself is great. That makes me feel special. There's no one around, so there's no noise. I have privacy almost. I don't have to worry about other people, and I can totally relax. So if you have something all to yourself, it's a great thing. Maybe you visited at a quiet time. So I had the museum all to myself. Or you're the only person in the restaurant. I had the restaurant all to myself. And I was the only person on the beach, which was great. I had the beach all to myself.
So another bit of regret. Okay, so when you regret something, you made a choice in the past. And now you don't like that choice. Okay, so you regret. You want to change the past, right? I actually wish I had spent more time there. I actually wish I had spent more time there. So I wish I had spent more time there. So, he went to Rome. He did all the touristy spots and, he saw what he needed to see. But, maybe the next time he plans a trip, he will spend more time on this little island because he actually wishes he had spent more time there.
We've got two similar structures for regrets. I should have done it. I wish I had done
Mm-hmm.
it. So you could say, I should have spent more time there. I wish I had spent more time there. So they both use
Hmm.
that third form of the verb, spent and spent in that case, but they're
Yeah.
both
I
making
I
mistakes.
feel like I should have is I made a mistake. And I wish I
Mm.
had. It feels more like, oh, yeah, that was so nice. I wish I had done more of that. It feels more whimsical, feels more like,
Mm.
oh, that would be nice, right?
Yes, too. I think you should do the next one because we just
Yeah.
don't say this in England.
Yeah. A beach vacay, a beach vacay. Now, a vacay is just a silly word. It's short for vacation, a beach vacay. It sounds like vacay, right? Vacay, vacation, vacation. So a beach vacay would be a vacation at the beach. And I said, oh, I could really go for a beach vacay out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, again, there's no real equivalent in the UK. We don't say this word at all. It feels weird to say. We just say a beach holiday.
Vacay.
Um, yeah, I can't do it in a British
Very
accent either.
American.
It's so American. Yeah, exactly. So Kat mentioned the next phrase already. A beach vacay out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
Out in the middle of nowhere. A place in the middle of nowhere is very, very remote. So it's far away from any big cities or big places, or it's quite isolated. So it's difficult to find help or find the things you need. It can be positive or negative. If you want to say it in a positive way, yeah, a beach vacation, a beach holiday out in the middle of nowhere. In a positive way, it can mean quiet, peaceful, relaxing. No big cities and traffic jams to bother you. You can also use it in a negative way. You say, ugh, we went to this little town in the middle of nowhere and I couldn't use my phone. There was no phone signal. So it can be positive or negative. In this dialogue, I think Kat means it in a positive way, somewhere peaceful, quiet, and far away from the big cities, out in the middle of nowhere.
Now, I think I said something like, ugh. And this is kind of a jealous sound. It's not like, ugh, disgusted. It's just like, ugh, I want to go there.
Pain, physical pain. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It
That
hurts
sounds really
me.
nice. Now, if I want to kind of connect with Mark and maybe I watched something about Italy or I read something about it, I could say, oh, I've heard it's really good down there. I've heard. I've heard. Now, it's funny because we are talking about hearing, but most of the time when I say I've heard something, I actually read it online. So we could say I've read that I've read that it's really good down there, but very commonly we just say I've heard. That means people say, or people often say, or, I heard this from a friend, and then I heard it on TV, and I read it in a news article, or I read it in a book. I've heard it's really good down there.
Yes, and when I talked about the food, incredible. We tried all sorts of local dishes. The main phrase here, we tried all sorts of. We tried all sorts of local dishes or local food, and the phrase means I tried lots of different ones, many different types. All sorts of emphasizes a big variety. So I was trying pizza, pasta, gelato, seafood, lots of stuff, all sorts of stuff. You could also say we went to all sorts of places, we met all sorts of people, and we tried all sorts of local dishes. So all sorts of just means you did a lot of different things. So again, I had a great time on my holiday. I got to try all sorts of different food.
I like it because the way that you say it, Mark, and I say all sorts of, all sorts of, it really feels more like lower. And all sorts of really
all
feels.
Sorts. Do you say sorts of in the States?
I say,
or would you say all types of?
Yeah, there were all sorts of people there. All sorts of, all kinds of people there. I
That's a
think
good one.
kind is a little bit easier in my accent as well, with an American accent, all sorts of, because it all sorts of really kind of gets into your mouth there. So all kinds of is very common as well. So sounds delicious, sounds great, sounds fun. That means that you just told me something, I heard it, and I'm giving you my opinion. Wow, that sounds fun. Or I think that sounds fun. But we just kind of cut it short. Sounds good, sounds great, sounds delicious. And we can use this with pretty much any adjective, okay? Sounds terrible, sounds awful, sounds really fun. Now, if you want to add a sentence instead of an adjective, just add the word like, okay? Sounds like you had the perfect trip. Sounds like you liked the food. Sounds like. Now, this especially is me giving you my opinion. Well, I think it sounds like you had the perfect trip. So from what I'm hearing, from my opinion, sounds like you had the perfect trip.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I listened, but the story sounds good.
Yeah.
So that's why it sounds like it's not hears or listens. It sounds good. Like your story, your description sounds great. Yes.
Exactly.
It's a good way also to show you're listening. Yes. So there were a few problems with the trip. Nothing is perfect. Again, when we talk about mistakes or bad things in English, we tend to minimize them or make them smaller. If you remember previously, I said a bit of an adventure. So a bit means it's smaller. Adventure is sort of a euphemism for problems or challenges. And another way you can talk about problems is hiccups. Hiccups. There were a few hiccups. Hiccups are literally when you're like every few seconds and you can drink some water, you can hold your breath to get rid of your hiccups. Yeah. But it can also mean little problems. Again, small problems, because I don't want to talk and complain about how difficult it was. We make problems smaller. So yeah, there were a few hiccups at the start. That means there were a few little problems along the way, a few hiccups.
So one of those hiccups, one of those small problems or big problems, sometimes we say that anyway, was that our flight got delayed. Mark's flight got delayed. Okay, so why do we say got delayed? It's because something happened to the flight and caused it to become late. Okay, so to delay, so if I'm stopping Mark, I delay him. I'm stopping Mark, right? And so I delay him. I'm making him late. So he was delayed. He got delayed because of me. I did the action to him, right? So our flight got delayed. Maybe it was a person on the ground, maybe it was another airplane, maybe it was the weather. All right? Our flight got delayed. His flight got delayed. His flight was delayed as well.
Yes, right. The flight can't delay itself. It gets
No,
the
not
plane
usually,
doesn't
right?
choose to fly or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
our flight got delayed by something else. And yeah, the problem that caused is we almost missed our connection. Almost missed our connection. So I did still make my connection. Connection when you get off one plane and get onto a second plane to continue your journey. Almost missed it. The second plane almost left without me. Almost means it was close. Maybe 10 minutes later, I would have missed it. Or 30 minutes later, I wouldn't have made it. Almost missed our connection. This works for planes, trains, the underground or the subway as well. When you have to change and continue on another vehicle, that's a connection. So almost missed our connection.
Now, when something is a little bit difficult, right? We have a problem with something, it causes us pain. Okay, so a bit of a headache, a bit of a mix up, a bit of a headache. So if something is a headache, it basically is a problem and it causes you some sort of pain. Maybe it causes you to have a headache, but sometimes we say that something that's bothering you is a headache. Yeah, that was a bit of a headache. Similarly, a bit of a mix up. Mix up. Okay, a bit of a mix up. That means that something was in the wrong place. Okay, a bit of a mix up. I thought you were here and you thought I was here. That was a bit of a mix up. A bit of a mix up.
Generally, kind of any inconvenience or problem. So a bit of a headache. It inconvenienced me. We had to solve a problem. We didn't want to do that. So it's a bit of a headache. Again, a bit, because we're making the problem smaller. That's how we talk about most issues. Make them small. So luckily, despite all of these hiccups and problems, there was a happy ending. My luggage, there was a bit of a mix-up with our luggage, but it showed up in the end. I think the main phrase here is in the end. After we have a problem, after we face some difficulty, in the end is the phrase to say finally or at the end of our story. It was all okay in the end. We were a bit lost, but then in the end, we found our hotel. Or I lost my wallet, but I found it in the end. In the end is finally, overall. So when you want to summarize and finish talking about a problem or any travel experience, in the end is your phrase. It's not at the end. That's a little bit different. This is in the end, like finally, overall. So yeah, there was a bit of a mix-up with our luggage, but it showed up in the end. So finally, I got my luggage back. It's all okay.
All right. This is kind of an interesting question that I asked Mark. Did you get around to doing any shopping while you were there? Okay. While you were there is during your trip, while you were in Rome, while you were in Italy. Did you get around to doing something? If you get around to doing something, then maybe at the end of the day, you had a little free time and you finally did it. It wasn't really a priority, okay? It wasn't really something you had to do, right? So, Mark had lots of things to do on his list. He wanted to go to the Colosseum. He had to stand in line. He had to go to the Vatican. He went to these places. Maybe shopping's not high on his list of things to do, so maybe he got around to it. So, if it's not a priority, you might eventually get around to it. You might eventually have a little time later in the day, a little free time later to finally do it. So, did you get around to doing any shopping while you were there, Mark?
As a matter of fact, I did. I did go shopping. I think I went around a local market and I bought you something. I bought you a souvenir or a gift. If you are on holiday and you buy a gift for someone, I said it's a small token to say thanks. A small token. A token is usually a gift, or it's something I give to you because you helped me first. Often we say a small token to say thanks. A small token to say sorry. If I borrow something from you and I accidentally break it, I should buy a replacement and give it back and say it's a small token to say sorry. But Kat dropped me off at the airport and she picked me up, so I want to thank her for that. So I bought her a little gift, and that gift is a small token to say thanks. A small token to apologize. A small token to say thank you. So that's a nice phrase when you give a gift to someone because you're grateful or they helped you.
Yeah, I think like a token, it represents something more. It's not just a cute little
Mm.
keychain. No, it represents more. It's to say thanks, right? So it's a token. And sometimes when you give a gift that you think might be a little too big, maybe it's a little expensive. Oh, no, it's just a small token. Don't think
Hmm.
of it as this big expensive gift. It wasn't. It's actually just I'm so thankful that this is what I'm giving to you to say thanks. So sometimes sometimes someone has given me a very big gift and I'm thinking, What? No, no, no. This is too
Right.
expensive. This is what are you talking about? Oh, no, no, no. It's just it's a small token to say thanks." Well, okay. Okay. Well, if
Okay
it
then,
wasn't too
if you say
expensive for
so.
you, then I guess I'll take it.
Okay, so one of the reasons I bought Kat a small token was to say thanks for coming to get me. So I went on the trip, I landed on the plane, and I left the airport, and I waited. Earlier, we said picking me up. Kat was picking me up, but I can also say Kat was coming to get me. So thanks for picking me up. Thanks for coming to get me. I'm waiting. So Kat is coming to me. Get is like she's going to take me, grab me, and put me in the car. But we use get again to mean collect or pick up. So coming to get me. I often think of like a teenager on the phone who missed the
Mom.
bus and they're like, Mum, can you come and get me? Can you come and get me? This is what teenagers ask their parents. It's like, can you come and pick me up? But it's a very common phrase among friends, family, and all people. So I gave Kat a little thank you gift to say thanks for coming to get me. Before the trip, when Kat is taking me to the airport so I can go on my holiday, she's dropping me off. She is leaving me at the airport. So I go into departures. Sorry, I go into departures and I leave. So she's dropping me off. We mentioned in the dialogue that she dropped me off before I went on my holiday. So overall, it's a small token to say thanks for coming to get me now and for dropping me off before my trip.
Okay, so our last phrase, glad you got home safe. Glad you got home safe. Now, we've been using glad. Happy to hear that. Glad to hear that. Glad you got to do this. Glad you got home safe. When you get home, you arrive home. Glad you got home safe. Now, in this case, when we're talking about going home, we just mean arriving back home in your city, okay? At the airport in your hometown, right? So we haven't quite gotten home yet to Mark's house, but I said, glad you got home safe. That means you were in Italy, you flew home, you're in your hometown at this point, right? So glad you got home safe. Happy that you returned safely.
All right, well done, everyone. It was a longer list this time, but it's the final week, so we'll do a final push. This is just day 2 of our classes talking about your travel experiences, and we hope you're looking forward to tomorrow, where we'll go through pronunciation and the blended sounds. Like always, though, the full course is available, waiting for you right now. All 25 videos are in one easy place with no ads. There's extra bonus materials, PDFs, worksheets, a big list of phrases with picture dictionary as well. You can get the full course in the link below right now.
Did you hear or learn anything new in our vocabulary class today? What was your favorite phrase? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow for our next class.